Record. This is the case of the people of the state of Colorado versus James Egan Holmes, case number 12CR 1522. The record should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with his attorneys, and the prosecutors are present as well. We are outside the presence of the jury. Mr. Brockler, I understand that you've come up with a new system to improve the audio on the recording.
I don't want to take credit till I know if it works. If it does, then it will be my idea.
Okay.
But I think the court can see we've got a couple speakers set up, pointed at the jury. There's also a microphone strategically placed inside of what appears to be a rubber gloves box, pointed and at such a place that I think, and we've tested in here, that I think it's still hearable, all the words, but it reduces down some of the white noise. If the court disagrees at any point, I'll keep watching the court early on. If you want to take a break and go back to the old system, we can do it, Judge.
All right, we'll do that. And just for the record, the court system here in the courtroom is actually a high-quality system. It's just that when you're playing a CD on a computer, on a laptop, it's centralized, so it's going to sound a lot better. But when you then play it in our system, it's going to pick up all the sounds from that recording, and that's what's happening. It picks up all the background noise because it's a high-quality system. So in any event, we'll try it this way. If either side wants to stop, just let me know. Give me a sign. Mr. King, same thing for you. Just give me a gesture, and then we'll stop and take a break, okay? Is there anything that we need to take up at this time on behalf of the people, Mr. Brockler? On behalf of the defense, Mr. King?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring the jury in, please. Be seated. Try not to assault each other, folks. I was just mentioning yesterday about how you're getting along, and I appreciated that. Welcome back. The record should reflect the jury's back in the courtroom. Members of the jury, welcome back. I hope you had a good lunch. In a moment, the prosecution is going to resume publishing Exhibit P-TR-1009. Before that happens, however, I'm going to remind you once again that The defendant's statements on this video recording have been admitted only for a limited purpose. You may consider the defendant's statements on this video recording only as to the issues raised by his plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. You shall not consider them for any other purpose. Dr. Reed's statements on this video recording may only be considered for the limited purpose of allowing you to evaluate the reliability of his examination and to provide context to the statements made in the video recording by the defendant. You shall not consider any statements made by Dr. Reed on this video recording for any other purpose. With that, Mr. Brockler, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I will dim the lights.
Under what circumstances might he not be a wronger? Having cut off your leg in an effort to kill you.
He had to do it.
He had to do it to what?
If he had to cut off my leg for some reason or another, or else there were other consequences to not doing it.
What if he was simply trying to kill you and didn't succeed? And he was trying to kill you in order to get a point for himself?
What do you mean by a point?
The same kind of points that you mean.
Dying point?
Yes.
Then he wouldn't be wrong.
He would not be wrong. Okay. What do you think you, the victim in this scenario, would do or feel with regard to the person that tried to kill you and you lost a leg?
Probably want vengeance.
Probably what?
Want vengeance.
Okay. Do you think you'd think that he was a wronger? From your victim viewpoint?
Maybe for what he did in that specific case, but that doesn't mean he's generally a wronger.
Okay. Let me carry just a little bit further. Your philosophy is strongly held. Your belief is strongly held.
Yeah.
And somebody tries to kill you and you lose the leg. Speculating, I guess. Do you think your belief would cause you to look him in the eye and say, I lost the leg, I'm sorry I lost the leg, but you're not a wronger?
Why would he apologize?
What?
Why would he apologize?
No, I'm talking about you looking him in the eye and saying, and no matter what, he's being silent, but you hold your belief strongly as you've described. Do you think you could, realistically speaking, say, you tried to kill me, I lost my leg, but I don't believe you're a wronger?
Yeah, I think he can say that.
Okay. Reminds me a little bit of the Christian beliefs, in which one of the tests of it is, do you believe it enough to go and be crucified in the Inquisition or something like that? It's reminiscent of other people's strong beliefs. At least my questions are.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense or not. It makes sense to me.
People held strong beliefs in the Inquisition, but would change them after torture and stuff.
You think you'd change yours after torture?
Yeah.
Think you'd change it after you lost the leg?
No.
that's all hypothetical. I understand that.
Okay.
Although about 5 sentences down, you have another question here. Do you believe in forgiveness? I don't know whether the you is you or who the you is. Tell me about forgiveness.
That's where you, I guess, I was going to say you forgive somebody, but that's certainly.
What does forgiveness do?
It reestablishes the balance and justice.
And you've used the word balance a couple of times, yeah.
Or equality.
If you're the wronged person, does forgiveness do anything for you?
It makes the situation equal again.
I get to a page titled The Destruction Law.
Yeah.
Tell me about the destruction law as you were thinking about it.
It's kind of the opposite of a society or a societal law, where like instead of trying to build and increase the population in a society, they're decreasing the population in the efforts to destroy everything.
And what's the premise of that? What's the purpose or the foundation or the reason for that one might
Just
do
to
that?
eliminate mankind.
Tell me more about eliminating mankind. What does that do? Where does it come from?
Well, the destruction law, every 2 people you kill, you're allowed to have 1 child, so it increases the incentive to be destructive, and people who don't kill people can't have any children.
Do you recall kind of the frame of mind or what you were thinking about when you wrote this page?
It's kind of like an alternative to nuclear winter.
And I take it there is something positive about the destruction law, or am I misunderstanding? That's a good thing under some circumstance?
The positive is it eliminates mankind and all problems associated with living.
I guess I could look at it one way and think about population control.
Right. A little bit.
But I think you're saying eliminate mankind altogether. Is that right?
Right, and you do it through this population control, increasing destruction.
And you have a little reward for people who do murders. That is, they can have children of their own if they want to,
Right.
according to what you've written. And tell me why the elimination of mankind is something to be accomplished.
Because there's no purpose or reason for mankind to exist.
Why does that make it important to destroy it?
So the problem of that purpose is solved.
The problem of that purpose? What problem of that purpose?
The problem of not having a purpose is solved.
Okay. From our viewpoint, there's no purpose in Jupiter either.
Okay.
So should we just destroy it?
Destroying Jupiter won't solve any and all problems. No.
But it has no purpose anyway. What problems does mankind create?
War, famine, disease.
Okay. Okay. And those are differences between mankind and Jupiter. I'll certainly give you that.
Right.
It sounds like you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that mankind causes wars. Destroying mankind will end wars. And that's a good thing.
Right.
Are you saying that anyone who's affected by a war is automatically to be destroyed or needs to be destroyed? That there are no innocents, if you will, or no benign or neutral or innocent folks involved in the wars?
Well, not everybody's involved with wars.
But you're willing to wipe out mankind to eliminate wars
And all the other problems.
and all the other problems. What I don't hear you saying is, let's wipe out all the warmongers.
Well, it's kind of human nature almost to fall back to wars and violence when there's no solution.
So, in the end, everybody's a warmonger? And if you destroy them all, then you're assured of destroying all the warmongers?
Well, they're not necessarily warmongering, but everybody has problems and has to live life as a struggle.
Once again, going back to some of the things we've talked about before, it doesn't sound like you're talking about this as something that you do in anger.
No, there's no anger to it.
Okay. Because we've talked, I think, about ways in which you hate mankind,
Right, kind of.
or hated mankind.
Aversive versus aggressive.
Okay. The broccoli versus
Even though I actually like broccoli.
okay. Okra, something else.
Oh, Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts, okay. And it's interesting to me, please correct me if I'm wrong, there seems to be a distinct separation and non-relationship between to use your words, hatred of mankind, which you sometimes describe as aversion to mankind,
Yeah.
on the one hand, and quite separate, the destroying of mankind.
No, destroying doesn't come out of the hatred.
I understand. Does the destroying at all, in any way, come out of the aversion or hatred of mankind? Even the aversion, let me use your word aversion, even though we both understand that you've used the word hatred before. But you've said hatred means aversion of, like hatred of Brussels sprouts.
Right.
If I'm tracking right?
Right.
Okay. Is there any connection between that concept, which has been with you for a long time, decades, and the wish or need or logic of destroying mankind?
There might be some incentive there.
I'm sorry?
There might be some incentive there.
Tell me about that.
Well, because I'm averse to mankind, I don't want to have to deal with people. So one way is to get rid of them.
And we've talked a bit about there are ways to not be around them.
One way is to be solitary in jail.
Even though you still have to deal with them a little bit.
Right, they bring meals and stuff.
There are ways to be much more isolated outside of jail.
True, yeah.
So the concept of, not to trivialize it, of destroying all the Brussels sprouts in the world, then you would never have to look at another Brussels sprout. You wouldn't have to look at a can of Brussels sprouts on the supermarket.
Right.
Is that getting akin to it? Is that analogous at all?
It's an option.
Or am I just making a really, is the analogy pretty much falling apart here?
No, it makes sense.
The end result is that you become one way or another isolated from mankind. The end result of the shooting.
Right.
Either in an isolation type cell or deceased.
Right.
That purpose in the shooting is quite different from another purpose that you've mentioned, and that is to keep yourself from killing yourself.
Right, there's two separate things.
Any other pieces of the killing, of the motivation for the killing?
I can't think of one.
To keep yourself from killing yourself.
Right.
And to end up somewhere
Minimal human interaction.
with minimal human interaction. Does it occur to you that they're both kind of selfish motivations?
Yeah, because it doesn't take the other person's perspective into account.
They're both to make you feel better in some way.
Yeah.
On the same destruction law page, ultraception comes up once more. Only the arrows go in a confusing direction for me. Ultraception, dilated pupils, and more light. But the arrows are going that way, as if more light leads to dilated pupils, leads to ultraception. I would have thought the arrows would have gone the opposite way. Does that make sense, or can you explain that?
I don't remember what that means.
Okay. Oh, actually, I'm reading that a little bit erroneously. More light in eye. Okay. It sounds like you were wondering, one of the things you may have been wondering about is your dilated pupils.
Yeah, because I had them going into jail before I got on medications. So I don't know what they came from.
I look at your booking photograph. At least I think it's your booking photograph. It's one that they use in the newspaper and stuff like that. With the jumpsuit on and the yellow or orange hair. Your pupils are not particularly dilated in that. Maybe a little bit, but not that much. Roughly where they are today.
All right.
Just kind of interesting. And by the way, your pulse when I took it was not as fast as it was when you were over at the hospital.
Well, maybe I'm more used to jail.
I was going to ask if you feel in some way a little more at ease
Could be.
in jail, or maybe a little more used to me.
Could be that too.
Hey, I'm a friendly guy, right?
Yeah.
And there's some pages about math and geometry and waves, stuff like that I'd love to talk with you more about. But here's a page that says, identifying the philosophers, aka insanes. Does that ring a bell about what you might have been thinking a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I remember some of what they wrote. It was about true or false questions.
Yes. Yeah, the rest of the page has to do with true and false questions. But the equivalence apparently here, the philosophers are also known as the insanes. Is that kind of a philosophical statement, or is it a true equivalence, or
I don't know where this thing
roughly
came from.
any particular meaning to that, or that you can think of right now?
None that.
And there's chain theory, which looks interesting. You had calculus. How far did you go in math and calculus?
Oh, I only took like medium calculus.
Okay. How about physics?
Basic physics, like they call it like physics 2A, 2B, 2C. So like 3 physics courses.
Recalling things or reading sense about things like string theory and brain theory? BRA?
I read a little bit about string theory.
Okay. Interesting to you? Or does it come to mind when you talk about your chain theory?
Yeah, it's pretty much chain theory.
Okay. Okay. And here's the poem you were talking about, that you wrote apparently after.
Yeah, I think it was after.
Any thought about roughly when you wrote the poem?
December.
I'm sorry?
December.
About December, and I'll put a question mark. Would you read the poem to me?
What cruel ties of fate, whom sunken lies in wait, the past exceeds escape, to live and love and hate. With destiny I cry, forevermore, forever.
That's quite a poem. Can you tell me about the image in the poem, the imagery, the thoughts?
I was depressed. So I can't remember when I was depressed.
What cruel dies, D-Y-E-S, of fate? What are the meanings of the images in that line?
I don't know what it means.
Whom sunken lies in wait. What comes to mind?
I don't know.
This is a lot of I don't knows this morning.
I was never very good at analyzing poems.
But these are things that came out of you.
Right, yeah.
And they're kind of pretty things that came out of you.
Okay.
Yeah. What cruel dyes of fate? What kind of dye are you talking about?
Color.
Colors.
Yeah.
Not a dye like a dice that would be tossed. It would be spelled slightly different.
I think it would be spelled differently.
It would, but sometimes poets misspell things. Talking probably about color. Whom sunken lies in wait. Sounds like you're saying fate is sunken down and lying in wait. Is fate lying in wait for you?
Well, all the time it is, yeah.
The past exceeds escape.
You can't escape your path.
To live and love and hate. With destiny I cry forever, forevermore, forever. And then an ellipsis, dot, dot, dot.
forever goes on.
To live and love and hate with destiny, I cry forevermore, forever. That's saying something kind of deep and poignant about you. What's it saying about you?
Is that I'm trapped by my destiny.
What's the picture in your mind?
One of sadness.
Tell me more. What's the painting?
I don't have a mental image of it.
What are the feelings? What's the smell? What are the sounds? The sadness, the picture. With destiny I cry forevermore, forever.
And
when you're by yourself, do you know when you're by yourself? Does it come to you?
what do you mean?
Do you feel it more deeply, more poignantly perhaps?
I don't think so.
Do you feel the poem?
Yeah, it's just one of sadness. It's an expression of sadness.
As we're thinking about it, do you happen to remember what you were doing or thinking when the poem came out of you?
Oh, no, I don't remember.
Write any other poems?
I think I wrote one in the notebook.
Okay. Any others, or do you think about them?
Not really.
I'm a little surprised you don't write.
But I don't write anymore.
Yeah.
I kind of figure what's the point of writing.
We talked about the photograph and the notebook.
To be remembered. I guess
Yes.
one way writers are remembered, right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. As ways to be remembered, as legacy. And you indeed mentioned that it's a way for your belief to get out and to exceed your death whenever that may come.
Right, I kind of think, why does it even matter if it does matter?
You getting depressed lately?
Not lately, no.
How are you sleeping?
Sleep a long time, from like midnight to 4 in the afternoon.
Why do you suppose you sleep so much? There are several possible reasons.
It's the easiest way to pass the time.
That sounds kind of hopeless to me. It's the easiest way to pass the time yesterday, and today, and tomorrow, and the next day.
Yeah, for years.
What are you feeling as you say that, or as I say that?
That's just the way it is.
That's the way I'd expect a non-sentient being to experience it. You're a sentient being.
Right.
My dog experiences his situation because that's the way it is.
I think dogs are sentient.
My gerbil,
I think gerbils are sentient too.
my chameleon.
I don't know about reptiles.
Okay. But you've got more capacity to remember the past, to speculate about the future, to put yourself in different situations
I can't change the future or the past, so.
Nobody can.
Right.
But most people, everybody that I know of, has thoughts and feelings about pasts and futures.
Yeah, I have those too.
Tell me about some.
Well, they usually have fond memories of the past, the good family. And not too many fond future memories or suppositions.
You talked about sadness. You haven't talked much about fear.
Right.
You mentioned that when you're by yourself, you can bring the shadows.
I haven't been able to lately.
Beg pardon?
I haven't been able to lately.
You haven't been able to. Have you tried?
Yeah. Looking at like blotches on the wall.
When you
Looking at blotches on the wall.
looking at blotches and you haven't been able to bring the shadows.
No.
Okay, yeah, the Baron of the Land game. Kennedy?
Just something to pass the time.
You know, that strikes me as maybe a little more fun way to pass the time than just sleep. What about you?
Well, I find sleeping is the easiest, the most effortless.
That's true, effortless. That's true. What are we doing on time? Why don't we stop for lunch?
Okay.
And I'll come back in an hour and a half or so.
Alright.
All right? Super. Get the gentleman back in here. They treating you okay, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're going to break for lunch, gentlemen.
I'm going to turn the lights back on. The record should reflect that the people just finished publishing Exhibit P-TR-1009. Members of the jury, I remind you that the defendant's statements on this video recording have been admitted only for a limited purpose. You may consider the defendant's statements on this video recording only as to the issues raised by his plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. You shall not consider them for any other purpose. Dr. Reed's statements on this video recording may only be considered for the limited purpose of allowing you to evaluate the reliability of his examination and to provide context to the statements made in the video recording by the defendant. You shall not consider any statements by Dr. Reed on this video recording for any other purpose. Mr. Brockler, would you like to proceed with additional questions of Dr. Reed at this time?
I would, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Doctor, I remind you that you're still under oath.
Yes, sir.
And members of the jury, I remind you that Dr. Reed's testimony has been admitted for a limited purpose. You may consider his testimony only as to the issues raised by the defendant's plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. You shall not consider this testimony for any other reason. Mr. Brockler, you may proceed.
Thank you, sir. Doctor, I want to take you back to the beginning of this segment and ask about a couple early things. One, you made comment about the defendant's pupil size, which you did again after you referenced an initial booking photo. What significance was that?
I was looking for significance in the pupil size. One of the likely significances is that they have to do with anxiety that he's feeling, whether he's feeling it consciously or not, because a part of our nervous system is unconscious, the sympathetic nervous system, that when we get nervous makes our pupils get wider. I can't give you very much evidence for that within these videos because sometimes they're smaller, sometimes they're larger, but it's conceivable, and he mentioned it too, that he's simply less anxious right now talking with me or less anxious being in jail than he was at the hospital.
Any other significance that you could find psychiatrically, Doctor?
No.
You also asked him to do some sort of a trick or a skill that he had mastered, reciting the alphabet backwards. Why?
I heard that he could recite the alphabet backwards, and I was curious about it. It's also sort of an icebreaker. It gives him something to do. That's a skill he has that lots of other people don't have. I could compliment him on it to help our relationship, and it's pretty hard to do. He deserves that compliment, I guess.
Can I ask you to do it right now? No, I'm not.
You can
I'm not gonna
ask,
do it.
but I
I'm
won't
not.
be able to do it.
You talked to him a bit about what he did leading up to his performance on those hour-long oral board prelims. Do you remember that?
Yes.
What was the significance of that for you psychiatrically?
This period of his life was a month, 6 weeks to 8 weeks or so before the shootings. It's of considerable interest how he was functioning in the world in April, May, June, and early July. The prelims are a kind of gateway exam for graduate students that's generally fairly difficult and is very, very important, excuse me, in the life of a graduate student for advancing to future studies. Ordinarily, one would expect someone to be studying hard. He didn't. And we went into why he might not have been, or why he wasn't studying hard, and he gave me some reasons.
Were those reasons at all irrational to you?
They were not irrational in the sense of he had reasons, he had something else to do, namely pursue the mission, and he also had decided by that point that graduate school was not going to be very relevant to the rest of his life. It should be added that that decision in itself to plan to shoot people for the reasons that he had is not particularly rational in my view.
What about the idea that he also told you, hey, look, they didn't tell me what to study for. They didn't give me direction. I asked I can't remember the word, if it was mentor or whatever, and he said study everything. What about that?
I wasn't there, I don't know for certain, but it sounds like sort of an excuse. All graduate students have prelims and they all are in the same boat, so to speak. I don't know whether all the other students would have said the same thing, but it doesn't sound like, it sounds like a bit of a cop-out.
There's another portion where you end up asking him about if he's made the decision not to pursue this graduate course, why not just drop out? Do you remember that?
Yes.
What was significant about that exchange psychiatrically?
He said, I didn't drop out earlier, even though I was making the plans and didn't see much future in graduate school, because somebody might notice. I think he used the term, it would be conspicuous to the people around him, and he also mentioned conspicuous to Dr. Fenton. This was around the time, he said, that he bought the shotgun, which was the second weapon, the second firearm that he bought. That, among other things, suggests to me that he wanted to keep it secret, and although the shootings and the purpose for the shootings may be less than rational, the keeping it secret was, in my view, a rational part of being able to get to the point of the shootings.
How does it speak to, if at all, his capacity, in your opinion, to know right from wrong based upon societal standards of morality?
It is quite consistent with capacity to know right from wrong, in that narrow example.
Yes, sir. There's another portion where you begin to talk to him about the rules and whatnot, and he ends up saying something, or he confirms a statement that you make that he makes his own rules. Is that significant?
Rules in what context?
I'm sorry, in terms of his philosophy. I don't know what.
Are
do you know what I'm talking
about? The relativistic?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Objection. Can we get just a question and answer here, please? I don't have a question.
I think there was a question, and then there was a question by the witness seeking clarification, and then there was clarification provided. Did you understand the question?
I do now, sir, yes.
All right, go ahead, you may answer. The objection is overruled.
Go ahead, sir.
He spoke about his concept of morality, his concept of right and wrong, being one that some philosophers call a moral relativism, and that is, right and wrong is what the person thinks it is, regardless of what other people think it is.
Doesn't someone who's declared themselves to be a moral relativist that says, I make up my own rules or my own standards, doesn't that mean they don't have the capacity to know right from wrong based on societal standards of morality? Am I wrong there?
Objection and misstating the testimony. Mr. Holmes never said he was a moral relativist.
Right. The jury will rely on its memory of the video recording. Mr. Brockler,
Should I repeat the question, Your Honor? I'm
why
sorry.
don't you repeat the question? Yes.
May I have one moment?
Yes. While he's doing that, I'll clarify, folks, that lawyers are allowed to ask questions about what they think may have been said, but ultimately you have to rely on your memory of what was said and what is actually on the recording, all right?
Doctor, I'm going to ask you if you recall an exchange that ends with the defendant saying, well, it's what I believe, it's moral relativism. Do you remember that?
I don't remember specifically. I believe you're reading from a transcript, but I don't remember it specifically. I remember the concept being talked about and shared between he and I.
Tell us what significance that has in your evaluation of whether or not the defendant has the capacity to know right from wrong based on the societal standards of morality.
In my view, it doesn't go to the capacity to know right from wrong. It simply says what I think is right is what is right, and I don't care or don't believe in what other people say. I'm not certain that's exactly what he said, but I think I'm being responsive to your question.
The rest of the time, it seems like you spend trying to delve into some writings that were obtained from the jail. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you remember about when those writings were generated and obtained?
I'm not certain exactly when. He clarified that to some extent. There was a collection of writings, not unlike a journal, in his cell prior to his psychiatric episode in November of 2012. It apparently was closer to that event than it was to his arrest, but I'm not certain of that. And did your question go beyond that or not?
No, but I will ask a follow-up then. To be clear, though, when you say it happened before, my guess is the November 2012 incident,
Yes.
that you're still talking about it being after when the defendant was being prosecuted for this case. Is that fair?
After his arrest?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You go into some detail with him about his philosophy in there. What's the point of that? What are you doing?
I was interested in the contents of that journal. It was things that he had written down without anyone asking him to write them down. I was interested in whether they might bring out or be consistent with or suggest serious mental illness and things that might have a bearing on his mental health and his capacity on July 1920.
Now, his answers to those questions, reflecting back almost 2 years from when he generated them, is there anything about that conversation that changed your opinion about the defendant's sanity in this case, as defined by the court on the two capacity prongs we've been discussing?
It did not change my opinion about his capacity on July 1920.
There's one other part I want to finish up with. There is a quote, I'm going to ask you if you recall it. He says, because I'm adverse to mankind, I didn't want to have to deal with people. So one way is to get rid of them. Do you remember that?
Yes.
How does that go to whether or not the defendant had the capacity to know right from wrong based on societal standards of morality?
Those are unusual statements, and within this session, there were a lot of odd statements, some difficulty explaining things, the difficulty that the defendant had explaining things. That suggested emotional problems. That doesn't go, in my view, to how he was doing in terms of capacities to do things on July 1920. It may be relevant to what his diagnosis is. That's the best I can do with it.
Change any opinion that you formed on July 19th or 20th about the defendant's sanity?
No, it did not change any opinion.
All right. There's another segment of this, Your Honor. I think I have it here. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Is that okay? Sir, I'm handing you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 1010, and there's the same two copies we've referenced now a bunch of times. One has the seal of our office on it. That one ostensibly is the harder to hear version. And then the other one is the one that, again, should be the easier to hear version. Have you had an opportunity, one, with the 1010 with our seal on it, to review that in detail to see that within the context of the court's orders, is a fair and accurate copy of the recording that you made of the defendant on the afternoon of April 27th, 2014?
It's a fair and accurate representation of that session.
Okay. And then the other disc, the one without the seal on it that's supposed to sound better, did you have a chance to confirm that appears to be the same copy as the one that we just confirmed you watched in detail?
I compared the times and verified that the video was there and certified it by initialing it.
Your Honor, I'm going to move for the admission and publication of People's TR 1010.
Any objection, Mr. King?
No additional objection.
Without additional objection and based on my prior rulings, P-TR-1010 is admitted. And I'm admitting the version with the enhanced sound. All right? You want to publish it now, Mr. Brockler?
Would, Your Honor. Thank
All
you.
right. Doctor, do you want to sit down?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And while the prosecution is getting ready to do that, members of the jury, I want to remind you that the defendant's statements on this video recording have been admitted only for a limited purpose. You may consider the defendant's statements on this video recording only as to the issues raised by his plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. And I talked to you in more detail about that yesterday. You'll recall that. You shall not consider them for any other purpose. Dr. Reed's statements on this video recording may only be considered for the limited purpose of allowing you to evaluate the reliability of his examination and to provide context to the statements made in the video recording by the defendant. You shall not consider any statements made by Dr. Reed on this video recording for the truth of their content or for as evidence of the content of the statements or for any other purpose. All right, with that, you may proceed.
Your Honor, also, we've marked the one with the seal as CTR 44. Is that okay?
That's fine, thank you. All right, I'm going to dim the lights.
So, you had lunch? Yep. Okay. Anything special going on in the last hour and a half? What are you reading right now?
I just finished up Game of Thrones book 5.
Oh, yeah? That's a very thick book, isn't it?
Yeah, they're like dictionary size.
Wow. I have not read it.
It's a good series.
Good series. What other stuff have you read since you've been?
Fantasy stuff called The Wheel of Time. That's set in like medieval and it's
Is it medieval story or does it have fantasy or sci-fi mixed in?
it has fantasy mixed in Warlocks and
Maybe a couple of notes here. Those are still good, huh? Close again. Thank you. Okay. We've talked about the writing that you have done, which is very interesting. So, some other topics, if I may, unless there's something that you recall from this morning that you want to expand on or clarify. When you were buying some of the equipment before this year, at Bass Pro Shop and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I noticed one of the videos, you spent a long time in the store, they kept you waiting a long time. You're waiting at the counter for like 30, 40 minutes or more.
That was the first time, because I didn't know how long background checks and stuff.
Okay. So somebody, background check at the time.
Well, yeah, there's like, in order to, like, 4 people were wanting before me or something.
Okay. Was it shorter after that? Or were several of the times you'd be in the store for an hour just to go through paperwork?
Subsequent visits, I would go like eat lunch and come back to the store.
In the store, I know that you're uncomfortable around strangers. In the store, did you have any difficulty with people? Did it bother you?
No, because I had something to talk about. I was there for this.
Other customers that bother you, billing about, things like that?
No.
I've got a note here. There was a time, I'm wondering if you remember, when you were talking with Ben, sometime after you started seeing Dr. Fenton, and Ben was telling you he was depressed. Do you recall that?
No, I didn't.
So that's a long time ago, 2.5 years ago.
I think I would remember that, but I don't remember his name.
Oh, Ben having times when he was depressed too? He was depressed at times? Or do you not recall that?
I took him to the emergency room, but I don't know what it was for.
Wow, you took him to the emergency room.
Yeah, Gargi told me about it, and she can't drive, so she asked if I could drive Ben and her.
And you don't recall why? You don't recall what it was for?
I didn't ask and inquire.
It was for Ben or for Gargi?
For Ben.
It was for Ben. What do you suppose was wrong?
I don't know, just some health problem.
With his depression, as far as you recall, or?
This is the first time I've heard he was depressed.
When you were, let's say that again, I'm not sure.
You telling me that he's depressed is the first time I think that I've ever heard that he was depressed.
In your interactions in texts, there's a reference to Ben telling you he was feeling depressed. You may not recall it.
I might have overlooked it or something.
Telling him that he should use his depressed feelings, quote, to be destructive to the world around him. Just want some clarification of that if you remember. Do you remember a time talking about going to see Dr. Fenton with Ben? Did you talk with him about hearing voices, or said that hearing voices might be fun?
I don't want to call it that.
That's in one of the texts as well. I just don't recall. Okay, that's fine. She had with Dr. Messner.
A little bit.
They were like, over a year ago, I guess. Because you spent a lot of time with them.
Yeah, a couple days.
I'd like to get into those in some more detail, but I didn't bring the materials with me. I'll bring them tomorrow. But one of the things
I remember you telling Dr. Messner was that there was, that you had been feeling badly before the killing,
Yeah.
and that thought there was a 50-50 chance that killing people would make you feel better. Does that make sense, or do you recall saying that?
It sounds like something I would do.
Okay. You told Metzner, or Dr. Metzner, that the killing, quote, didn't work.
I didn't help with my depression.
Didn't help with the depression. Okay, I was wondering what the context was then. When you and I talked, Pat, I was thinking that you had told me that it did work, that it kept you from killing yourself, and you got the value points for doing it. Is there a disconnect that I'm missing there? Or?
I did get the value. It didn't stop my suicidal or homicidal thinking.
Okay. Didn't stop either the suicidal or the homicidal things?
Right.
Okay. In jail right now, how often do you see that person?
Well, it was Dr. Mosier, but you left, and I don't know what happened to him. Somebody else now, and I'd never seen. I'd seen him once, but I very rarely see him.
Once in how long a period?
Probably 6 months.
Medication for you. Is there any other mental health professional that sees you or offers to see you? You may decline. Anybody else that sees you or offers to see you?
Oh, not that good.
Okay. I'm curious, as you talk with either Dr. Gurr or me, benign experience, a difficult experience, a helpful experience, how would you describe it?
Exhausted.
You spent a lot of time in just a couple of days, don't you? Yeah. When you learned yesterday that I was going to be coming to see you again, what was your impression?
Well, I thought you did a thorough exam and symptom. They didn't really know what you wanted to go over.
Look forward to it, or dread it, or not really care one way or the other, or interrupt your routine? What?
Well, it does interrupt my routine, but anything that gets you out of the cell.
What else about spending time with me did you think about when you first learned that Reed was coming back? Any other thoughts?
Really,
Were you concerned or upset in any way?
I guess I was a little concerned.
Tell me about concern.
Maybe you didn't know how to kind of classify me, or what you had to do to come back again.
There are lots of things I don't know.
Right.
There always will be. I'll share with you that the reason I came back was to clarify some things from the time we spent together. Try to go over some things that we didn't have a chance to talk about. And I can talk a lot over the weeks, I'm sure, and I'd still have things to learn, and you still have things to tell me.
Okay.
I'm hoping you'll tell me as much as you can in the time that I have.
Yeah.
How about when you learn that Dr. Gurr is coming? What do you think about that?
Just another break in routine. Kind of the same feeling as when you come.
Is there concern when you see her, or different feeling? 'Cause
No,
after all, she works for your lawyer.
I'm
And
a little less concerned because she's like hired by our team.
True. Okay. Okay. When I was talking about you talking with Ben about hearing voices or seeing, I don't know whether I said, do you recall telling him that you thought hearing voices might be fun? Did I already ask you that?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
I
Got
didn't
it.
know.
Okay. You had an acquaintance in grad school named Lee, Yopio Lee? Yopio Lee, is that how you pronounce it?
Yom?
Was it Yum?
Y-E-O-M, is that?
Somebody could have misspelled it here, so,
Is
okay.
it Young Lee or?
It's
Young?
Y-E-O something Lee.
I think he was one of the hello neuroscience graduate students in the first class.
Okay. Can you tell me anything about your relationship with him? What you might have done with him?
He's a friend. Made spaghetti for me once.
Okay. At your place?
Yeah.
That's nice. About when was that?
After I bought the first gun, because I think I showed it to him too. He was talking about how he had compulsory military education or whatever in Korea. And so I guess that's how the gun came up or something.
Okay. Do you remember how you showed it to him, what you did? Did y'all go out and shoot it, or
No, I just showed him and unloaded and everything.
you remember what he thought about it? Nice gun, or?
He said it was more expensive than the ones the military gave him.
I can understand that. I've got a note here that Lee was also depressed, or said he was depressed. Do you recall that?
Apparently all the graduate students were
It
depressed.
sounds like it. It sounds like it's endemic to the grad school there.
Yeah, I don't remember him telling me he was depressed.
Okay. Let me just ask you about the last thing I've got on this page. You've often talked about wanting to keep the shooting of someone, the killing of someone, impersonal.
Right. I don't think I could do it if it was personal.
To each person. Okay. When we talked at Simhib, we talked about some of the things that really got a bit personal while you were shooting folks. I mean, you could see the people even though you were wearing a gas mask.
Yeah, there were a couple of people who ran and got carried out.
I recall now one victim who describes your moving toward him. He's in the front row. And initially aiming over his head at people behind him, or aiming behind him. And then looking at him, best he could tell with the gas mask,
Okay.
and shooting him straight on. Do you recall that?
No, I don't recall anything like that.
I was kind of trying to reconcile that with what you mentioned about the need for things to be impersonal.
All right.
Any thoughts about reconciling that?
I felt it was majority personal.
I'm sorry?
I thought the majority of it was impersonal.
probably asked you this at SimHip as well. The fellow who was out emptying trash while you were waiting to go in
Right.
into the theater.
I couldn't see him. I had the sunshade up.
Then how did you know he was
I
there?
heard him.
I'm confused there too, because you said he went back in.
Right.
And so my thought is you must have seen him in some context.
Well, he left. I heard him go open the dumpster. Or not open it, just toss the trash or whatever he did. Because the dumpster was right next to me.
I understand. If he had looked in the car and found you,
Yeah.
what would you have done?
I had a handgun in the right passenger door that I could have used.
Think you would have used it? If he had gotten in the way of the mission in that one?
Yeah, I think so, because that's what it was for.
That would have been pretty up close and personal.
Right.
Can you reconcile that with the need to be impersonal?
Well, it's all hypothetical, because it didn't actually happen where he looked into the car or anything.
A little earlier in our talk this morning, I used the word indifferent in place of impersonal once or twice. And I think you moved that into irrelevant. I'm not sure quite the context we were talking.
Okay.
Can you draw any distinction, or are they the same, between it's impersonal versus it's indifferent?
They're pretty similar.
Good. Excuse me. I have kind of a list of things that I want to be sure that we talk about today or tomorrow. One of them has to do with your belief, and we talked a lot about that this morning, in gaining a point for someone that you've killed. We didn't use the phrase this morning, human capital. But is human capital,
That applies.
is that what we were talking about really this morning? Or is
Yeah.
it something different?
No, that applies.
Okay. We talked also, and we have talked a fair amount, about the thoughts or intrusive thoughts or impulses to kill other people that have occurred sometimes a long, long time ago, even when you were a child, right?
Right.
How far back does the human capital idea go? The idea that I will get some value for killing the person.
Since graduate school.
Just graduate.
Yeah.
We probably talked about this, but I'd like to address it again. Do you recall how that evolved in your mind? How the human capital concept came to be?
Well, I studied economics, and it's kind of an economic theory of value applied to people.
And I do remember us talking about the economics, so you're getting me back on track. Thank you. Tell me more about how and when it evolved and how it shaped into what it was as of May, June, July of 2012.
I don't remember when, but I did a text message to Gargi about making the capital. I think it was before I bought any weapons.
And I recall that text. I don't recall it word for word, but at that point, was the concept pretty new to you, or had it developed for quite a while?
It was novel.
It was a novel idea at that time.
Yeah.
Was it, as far as you can remember at that point of the text with Gargi, was it fully developed, or was it embryonic?
It was in its beginning stages.
Beginning stage. What happened with the stages after that? Tell me more about how it evolved and developed.
I started quantifying it, so I gave it numbers, as opposed to just being qualitative, which is just a description. And so that was the kind of final version, was this quantified example of the capital.
Do you remember a point, excuse me, do you remember roughly a point at which the quantification kind of clicked and fell into place?
When I was writing it down, I don't remember when I wrote it down though.
Writing it down like in a notebook?
In the notebook.
Okay. And the earliest that you were writing in the notebook was about?
I don't remember.
I'm sorry?
I don't remember.
I was thinking that the notebook started in June or July, but that may be too late. Did it start before that?
It could have. I didn't put dates on it, so.
Okay. But the quantification, correct me if I'm wrong, was at least weeks before the shootings, or could it have been closer to the shootings than that?
It was at least weeks before.
Okay. All right. And I think we talked earlier about the lack of much relationship, but the presence of some relationship between the hatred toward mankind and the motive or motives for the shootings. They're pretty much separate.
Yes.
Okay. I have a note to look further into your view of right and wrong, and whether there's a right and whether there's a wrong. And you referred to people who are wronged and wrongers in your writing. Can you talk a little about your view, particularly your view back in 2012?
I believe in moral relativism. So you kind of decide for yourself what's right and what's wrong.
And that's certainly one view of it. Was that the way your primary belief was in mid-2012?
I believe so.
As far as you recall. There's certainly more than one way to look at morals and ethics and right and wrong. And some people may look at it solely, entirely in one way, and some people may look at it in different ways in different situations. How about you?
No, I was pretty strong moral relativist.
Okay. Now I want you to tell me about moral relativism. What does moral relativism mean for Jimmy Holmes?
Just that there's no concrete, absolute set of moral standards. It's contrived by the individual.
Okay. Go ahead.
I don't know anything.
And there have been books and papers written on it.
Yeah.
You're teaching me. Teach me about it.
Well, that's all I know.
You know more than that. Teach me about it.
I don't know what else to say.
If I come back and say, That's BS. Can't be true.
And that would fit.
The world would go to hell if that were true. Teach me
It would
why.
fit with moral relativism.
Beg pardon?
It would fit with moral relativism because you're having your own opinion and your own belief.
Is the moral relativism an idea that it's fine to have? Or is it something that is or ought to be simply a part of society? That everybody should have and act on their own ideas of what's right and wrong?
It's an idea, so you can choose whether to adopt it or not.
Is it an idea with enough legs, with enough foundation, that society could get along with it? If everybody was a moral relativist?
Yeah, I think so.
How would you deal then with the idea that what one person thinks is right, I don't want him to do? He thinks it's right to steal my money or steal my candy bar.
Then you have to have some sort of enforcement
Enforcement of what?
of your beliefs. So you have to have some way of enforcing your beliefs to prevent him from doing what you think is wrong.
Is he doing something wrong by taking my candy bar?
He's doing something wrong according to you, but according to him, it's fine.
Does it make sense to you that if that were true for 300 million people, it simply wouldn't work? Would that be your conclusion as well, or not?
No, you have to change society, the way society works together. You have to have like enforcers that are like personal bodyguards to make sure you don't succumb to some other person's idea.
Sounds like kind of a survival of the fittest society.
I guess so.
Well, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like the weak or anybody that goes to sleep with his candy bar visible is going to lose, and the
So you have
strong
to hide your candy bar.
are going to get all the candy bars, or all the money, or all the
Right.
lives, or all the pretty women, or whatever the item is.
So it would be a completely different society from ours, where it's equality based. There it would be survival based.
What do you think of having that kind of society?
I've never been in it, so I don't know how it would work.
Does it sound like a place you'd like to be?
If you're the top dog, yeah.
How many people can be the top dog? I'm not trying to get into just a kind of a philosophical discussion with you, but it keeps occurring to me that if you're the person who makes the rules for your behavior, and it's okay within the society or within the larger population for you to do that, then that's a very odd society. You may believe it's okay. I guess, let me ask you this, does society then have a right to contain you if it doesn't want you to do what you think is okay?
Well, you're kind of your own society, so
Only if you live by yourself. If you can do whatever you think is okay,
alright.
and that happens to injure or deprive or kill other people, should society have the right to contain you or not?
I'm kind of looking at it as you have groups of societies. You have your own group of society that may be a conflict with another group of society. And whoever's strongest or cleverest is going to win.
Does that sound like a way that overall society could be successful?
It sounds like the way societies are on a global scale, like an American society versus an Asian society.
Okay. It sounds like a society that's doomed to have a few wars, to me.
Yeah, there'd probably be a lot of wars.
And you had an answer for that you've spoken of many times.
I'm trying to look.
What's that?
What's the answer?
You've said to get rid of mankind altogether.
Oh, okay.
Is that kind of where that was going, or not? Because
No,
that looked
I
like...
don't think more or less because it would destroy humanity.
Where is the place in our discussion where there was a flaw that would get us off the track from moral relativism to destroying mankind as the thing to do?
That was what I said was the destruction law, where if you're rewarded with destroying people with procreating children and stuff.
As far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, you haven't been a guy that broke a lot of laws.
No, I think I got one speeding ticket,
Yeah.
and maybe red light violation.
Did you run a lot of red lights when you thought you could get away with it?
No, I didn't do it when I could get away with it. It was one that had a very short timed yellow light.
Okay.
So I think they did it to charge people lots of money.
At other times, did you run lots of red lights when you thought you could get away with it, or did you
No,
stop?
I don't think I've ever ran a red light
Okay.
intentionally
Why would that be?
because I don't want to get T-boned.
Okay. You slow down, you're pretty sure nobody's coming, but the light is red. Would you go or stop?
I would stop. Or there could be a policeman hiding somewhere.
I can make it more isolated if you want.
If we're out in like the middle of Nebraska and there's a light with 4 ways, then I would go
Okay.
because there's nothing wrong with going.
And as you can tell, I'm kind of trying to understand better your moral relativism.
Okay.
If you're in a store and you can shoplift something,
They have cameras, so you shouldn't probably do that, or you'll get caught.
so far, every reason you've given has had to do with getting caught or not getting T-boned. It hasn't had to do with a feeling that it would be wrong to take someone else's property, for example, in a store.
Well,
Am I right, or is that
Yeah.
not right?
even the concept of property is one that's kind of misleading because you can't really own anything.
And now we're getting way off into another kind of philosophy. I'm trying to focus on, are there any other things that are contrary to what I might see as right that you did? I'm not saying that very well at all. You killed and wounded a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think that's a wrong thing to do.
Okay.
You think it's not a wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
Or at least you don't think you're a wrong person for doing it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other situations in your life, or in your life in May, June, July of 2012, in which you chose to do things that were wrong to I would probably think would be wrong to do, but you wouldn't.
No, I think I was on the set track for the killings.
No, I'm not talking about the killings. Everybody who's talked with me about you has said you're a pretty straight arrow guy.
Right.
They don't question your honesty particularly. They don't question you're not a cruel guy, you're not a mean guy. Nobody has told me that when you have a chance, you steal stuff. When you have a chance, nobody said that. The only thing that I can see in your background in which you and I would probably disagree about wrongfulness is this event, the killing. That seems odd to me. A true moral relativist, it seems to my simple mind, would have other examples in his life in which he didn't act the way other folks do, the way other, quote, law-abiding folks or straight arrow folks do.
Well, that's because there's punishments and...
You're a smart guy. You can avoid punishment.
I don't know about that.
You didn't get drunk. You didn't do drugs. You didn't... I'm thinking of illegal things, but I'm not. I don't necessarily want to limit it to illegal things because there are things that are quote-unquote wrong. They're not illegal. You treat people fairly nicely.
Yeah, it's common courtesy.
Do you do that because that's what you think is right, or do you do that because
That's what you're supposed to do.
that's the way you're supposed to do it?
That's what you're supposed to do.
Did you think it's right to treat people with common courtesy?
No, there's no reason for it to be right.
Okay. Were you ever tempted not to treat them with common courtesy?
Yeah, but I held back
Why?
because you're not supposed to be rude.
But you're not supposed to shoot people either. And
Yeah.
it sounds like they're not comparable, but maybe there's a little analogy here. You wanted to be rude, but you weren't rude because it was against convention to be rude.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody who was pretty convinced that he could do anything he thought was right, I would think that person would just go ahead and be rude.
Well, I don't think like that.
In one of the videos, it shows you holding the door open for someone behind you or helping the person or something like that in a store.
Okay.
You didn't have to do that.
Right. Just a nice thing to do.
Does the nice, in that case, come from within you, or does it come from social expectation?
Social expectation. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. I also think, by the way, that you were probably a nice guy.
Okay.
We've talked from time to time about your thoughts that you were mentally ill or crazy, to use a word you used, I think, before the shootings.
Right. So I tried to research some stuff.
Yeah. And some things you ruled out, other things you considered longer or ruled in. As I recall, a big long list of the possibilities in the notebook, right?
Right. Yeah.
One of the things that you ruled out, and you told me at SimHip that you ruled out, was antisocial personality. Do you remember that?
I think instead of that, I had social anxiety instead of anti.
What?
Instead of anti-personal disorder.
The reasoning you used, and I can probably find it in the notebook, the reasoning that you used, actually it was in my other notes, I'll bring it tomorrow, that you didn't have an antisocial personality, as I recall, was that you weren't cruel.
Yeah, I'm not cool.
What if I told you that antisocial folks are more about being indifferent to social convention and other people's needs than about being cruel? Many of them are not particularly cruel.
Then I might fall into that category.
Is a lack of cruelty the main thing that made you believe you weren't, quote, antisocial personality? I'm not trying to diagnose you at this minute, by the way. I'm just curious as to your thinking.
Yeah, I thought it was being mean to people was one of the main symptoms.
Okay. Okay. Did anything else suggest to you that you weren't an antisocial person?
No, not that I can remember.
Okay. Some folks, I think Dr. Messner, have talked with you, or you've talked with them about the idea of kind of having two different selves at times. And you and I talked about maybe there being a part of you that wanted to do the mission and a part of you that wanted to be stopped from doing the mission.
Exactly.
We talked about two parts in the same person. And one part, the part that wanted to complete the mission, overcoming the other. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's what happened.
Has there ever been a time when you felt like there were two James Holmes?
No, I don't think it's a multi-personality disorder.
What might be a suggestion that there would be literally two James Holmes? Not that you have them, but what might you look for to tell you, yep, that's me?
If there was like a cruel or mean side or something, which is different from my normal self.
Have you ever had times when there was some period of time, generally hours, but it could be minutes, where you didn't know where that time went?
Like the middle of the shooting, I don't remember that.
Okay.
Like at all, basically.
The middle of the shooting.
Yeah.
And you described to me the beginning of the shooting. You described to me the initial shooting part. You described to me the gun jamming. You described to me the walking into the lighted area up the aisle to try to unjam it.
Right.
You described to me the people leaving out the exit area where they wouldn't have to get close to you. You described to me the people who left ahead of you out the exit that you eventually went out.
Yeah.
The whole event lasted 10 minutes, 5 minutes?
I would guess 5 minutes.
Any times in which you said to yourself, wow, I don't know where I was for the rest of the day. Here it is, evening, and I have no idea where I was this afternoon. Or something
I have a
similar.
pretty good memory.
So, and I'm kind of referring to exactly what you said, missing chunks of memory where you could have been across town and not known it.
Yeah, I'd say in the middle of the shooting, when I was shooting randomly, I don't even know if it was randomly.
Okay. But I'm not just talking about the shooting. I'm talking about really any time in your life.
No, it hasn't really occurred.
Okay.
Can you stop it? Stop it. I'm going to turn the lights on. Thank you. All right, the records reflect that we have stopped the playing of People's Exhibit P-TR-1010. Members of the jury, it's 10 till 3. Let's go ahead and take our afternoon break. Please make sure you keep in mind all of the advisements that I have been giving you throughout the trial that govern your conduct when you're not in the courtroom. Enjoy the break. I'll see you back here in 20 minutes. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. Mr. Brockler, you have one more disc after this one, is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. How long is the other disc, the last one?
I'm being told 3 hours and 15 minutes, Your Honor. And can I have 1 second? How much time is left? Sounds like this one will be done at 5, Your Honor.
All right, and the one tomorrow then will be 3 hours and 15 minutes, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, anything else that we need to talk about at this time?
Your Honor.
Anything on behalf of the defense, Mr. King?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. I'll see you in 20. The court will be in recess.